guys, so we're going to tie the Bann Cruncher from the Cruncher pack. So we have our standard hook in here, and for this one, because I'm going to use the red wire, I'm going to use a red thread to tie it. So start just shy of the eye here and take our tying thread down our shank. So when you're tying a cruncher, you can tie the full length of the shank that you want, or you can actually tie the fly quite short on it and use the weight of the hook to tie a smaller fly but get more depth quicker, if you understand what I mean. So what do we use for a tail? So the options here are that we can use the pheasant tail that we got in our pack, or we could also use some of the hackles that we got, so we could strip portion of the hackle fiber off and use that as the tail. So for the purpose of this one, I'm going to use the pheasant tail itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip off, say, 4 or 5 fibers off my tail, and I'm going to tie these in on top. Quite short. I wouldn't be going anything much longer than the length of the body that you intend to tie. So I'm just going to go forward a little bit to tie this in, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my body as well, so as not to waste any of it. But first I'm going to tie in my rib. So we're going to use the red wire that we got in the pack, although say a cruncher is a style of a fly rather than an actual pattern, I suppose. So you could essentially use just vary it with any color combo that you wanted, or whatever comes with your particular pack. There's pearl in there as well, so you could use the pearl. So I've folded that back. Now if I'd used a very thick bunch of pheasant tail fibers there, then I would end up with a step. So it's important that you sort of tie these things fairly sparse. They're not meant to be heavy. So I'm going to take this now. This is a little bit fiddly because it's quite fine material. Just be careful it doesn't break. What you can do is with each wrap is just to set your finger on it, and that will stop them from unraveling. And if you want, you could also use hackle pliers to wrap these. So I'm not wrapping the whole way because these flies have a little thorax. So we'll just tie that off. Trim off the excess, and then we'll place our rib. So we can rib in the same direction that we wrapped our fibers, and if we do that, the rib will bed into them and won't be as prominent, or we can wrap in the opposite direction. So this is probably a more secure way of wrapping, as it's sort of wrapping across the fibers rather than in the same direction of them, and it will make your rib stand out that little bit more. So you can wrap as many turns as you want on there. As it's a very fine wire, I'm going to put an extra couple of turns at the front, and then I'm just going to snap that off and then wrap over it so it's secured. So this is creating then a little bed for where our thorax is going to go. So for this, again, we have multiple options. You could actually just have wrapped the red wire and created a thorax. You could use your pearl tinsel that came in the pack and create a standard pearl. Or what I'm going to use here is the peacock dubbing that we got. So I'm just going to put a little bit of wax on a couple of inches of our thread. I'm going to take a small bunch of our peacock dubbing. I'm just going to get it to seat in and bed into that wax, and then I'm going to twist it on. So once it's twisted, what you need to do is put on a couple of wraps so that it starts to catch the fibers. Once there's a couple of fibers caught, we can then twist it much tighter and create little thorax. Okay, and then we're going to put on one of our hackles. So you can tie this extremely sparse, in which case what you could actually do is strip one side of the hackle, or you can put on as many wraps as suits your own style. What I would say is if you take your hackle and then just place it on your hook and then bend it, and that'll give you an idea for size to choose one for it. So I'm going to choose this. So in this instance what I'm going to do is I am going to tie it in by its base, and I suppose in a lot of my videos you'll see me tying in my hackles by their tips, but in this I'm going to do this on purpose because the black barring of the furnace is most pronounced at the base and becomes thinner towards the tips of hackles. So if we want to gain that sort of barred effect, I'm going to tie it in by the base instead. So once tied in, we then take our hackle pliers and we put on as many wraps as suits our taste. Now to me, one wrap is probably enough, but you could wrap and wrap and wrap as many on. Depends how dense of a fly you want. So I'm going to take a couple of those off because I only really wanted the one or so on it. I've caught it with my thread, 2 turns across, flip all back, wrap that in place, good sharp scissors, snip it off neat. I'm just sort of going to press the hackle fibers back. Form the head and finish it off. We'll trim the thread off, and all that remains then is a spot of varnish, and that is our fly complete. So I'll just take a fine bodkin, pull my hackle fibers back out of the road, and then I just want to get that bleb of varnish to sort of meet up the whole way around. Check that your eye is not blocked, and that is our little cruncher tied. So a really effective general purpose nymph. So that'll suggest all manner of different nymphs and even buzzers as well. And I said that can be varied because it is a style of a fly more than an actual pattern. You could vary that. You could use your pearl ribs, you could use pearl as your thorax, you could introduce all manner of different colors to it. And I said the pack here allows you to tie a couple of dozen of those at least, but I said you could always use the materials that are with this pack and with other packs that you've got and combine them and create all manner of different variations on the theme.